Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have all new Dollar Tree DIYs to share with you. In my last video, I shared some easy and fun crafts for the 4th of July, and I had so much fun with that video that I wanted to create a few more to share with you, and I really love how these turned out, and I really hope that you guys are going to love them too. But before we get started, if you are new here, please do consider subscribing down below. This DIY is definitely my favorite from this video. So to get started, I'm going to be using 5 pieces of this 12-inch chunky slat wood that I found in the crafter square at the Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree does also have the 10-inch variety of this, and that will also work for this DIY. You just want to make sure that it is this thickness because we do want this DIY to be able to stand up on its own when we're all done with it. So you probably already saw from the intro, but we are creating a flag. So I'm just going to remove 2 of these wood pieces for now. Those ones are going to stay natural. And these 3 pieces here, we are going to be spray painting red. And I have this spray paint here from Rustoleum in the apple red color. And I think that this is the perfect shade of red for our flag. So I just took them outside, and I did end up just doing 1 coat of spray paint, but I did make sure to take my time, do it nice and even, and just get the tops as well as the sides. So here they are when they were all dry. You can just spray paint these extra 2 ones white, but I thought that the natural wood peeking out was really fun and different. So we are going to be assembling all of these pieces later, but right now I just want to assemble these 3 here because I want to tape it off to paint my blue section. So to glue them together, I'm going to be using some Elmers Wood glue. I'll leave this one linked down below. I believe I just picked it up at Walmart, but I think you can also order it from Amazon. This one works really well. You don't need too much. You just have to hold it in place for a little bit and then let it dry. So I let mine dry for a few hours after I glued these 3 pieces together. And now I'm going to get my painter's tape and just mark off where I want my blue rectangle to be. I did also decide just to cover up the rest of the flag as well because I didn't want any of the blue spray paint to accidentally get on that side. I'll be using this Rustoleum spray paint in the shade Deep Blue, and I just picked this one up from Walmart. Here it is after 1 coat of that spray paint, and I did let it dry for about an hour and a half. And now I'm just going to finish taking off that blue painter's tape. And now that everything is painted and dry, I'm going to go ahead and just glue my other 2 wood pieces into place with my Elmer's wood glue. You do want to let it dry for a few hours before you handle it. So now you can leave it just like this, or you can even hand paint some stars into the blue section here. I actually had this wood value pack. This is from the Dollar Tree. They've had this from time to time, and it just has a bunch of different shapes in it. You can get some stars in there. I'm actually going to be using the little wood hearts today. I thought that it would be something really fun and different, and I did decide to just leave them the natural wood color to kind of mimic the stripes in the flag. Once I laid them out to see where I wanted them to be, I just used some hot glue to attach them to my flag. And here's a closer look at the final result. This one definitely has to be one of my favorite Dollar Tree DIYs that I've ever created. I just really love the overall look of this one. Next up, we are going to be creating a really fun and different wood bead garland. So I'm starting off with these wood beads from the crafter square at the Dollar Tree, and they do have these ones here that are kind of like a cube shape, but they do have the traditional round beads as well. But these are really fun and unique looking if you want to just create something a little bit different. And I also picked up some twine as well as these table tennis balls from the Dollar Tree. For this DIY, we're going to need 4 of the table tennis balls. So 2 of them I'm going to be painting red, and then the other 2 will be blue. So I'm going to be using those same spray paints that I used in the last DIY, and you can paint these any way you like, but I'm just going to show you how I like to paint them. So I have a small box here with some notches cut into the side and 2 pieces of metal. So I just pierced 2 of those table tennis balls with that metal, and then I just push it into those notches in the cardboard box. So here is my apple red spray paint, and by having it set up like this, it's going to make it super simple. So all we have to do is just carefully rotate while we are spray painting to give it a nice and even coat. So I'm just going to carefully spin that wire back and forth to make sure that I'm able to reach every area with my spray paint. This is usually how I paint all of my wood beads because it's so fast and easy. Once they are dry, you can just give them a little spin and carefully pull them off that wire. And now we are going to get our strand ready for our wood bead garland. So the first thing we have to do is to create a tassel. So to do this, I'm just going to be holding a piece of twine in my hand and wrapping it around my 4 fingers a bunch of times. Then you want to cut another piece of twine, and this is going to be to just hold all of those loops together. So you can just push it right under your fingers, bring it to the top, and then I usually like to put maybe about 3 or 4 knots just to make sure it is super secure, and you want to pull it nice and tight. Then you're going to be cutting those other strands right across the knot and then folding the tassel over. So this is going to be hiding that knot in the head of the tassel. Then you can just take some more twine, wrap it around the head of the tassel to bind it together, and then you just want to create another knot. So once you've secured the head in place, you can pull the bottom straight and just give it a trim to make sure that everything is neat and even. Next, I'm going to be cutting a nice long piece of twine for my wood bead garland and then just tying it to my tassel. A trick to getting the wood beads onto your strand without struggling is definitely to use some tape on the edge of your twine. So this piece of tape is extra long, and that's going to help us get those table tennis balls on because those can be a little tricky. So I like to just put my twine in the bottom of my tape, fold it over, and then I'm just going to trim off the extra tape on the edge there and then just taper the end to kind of make it like a long needle. So this is definitely going to make the whole process a lot easier. I'm starting off by first adding 7 of those wood beads to my strand, and then I'm going to be adding one of the table tennis balls. Without tape on the end of the twine, it would be really difficult to get that twine to go through that table tennis ball, but by adding that painter's tape and making sure that it's extra long, it makes the process so much easier. So I just went ahead and continued that same pattern until I had all of my beads onto my strand. And to finish it off, you can just make another tassel and add it to the bottom there, but I wanted to do something fun and different, so I picked up this sign at Dollar Tree and I just pulled off one of the stars from the bottom. And now I'm just going to peel off that paper. Next, I'm going to be using this white yarn that I found in the crafter square at the Dollar Tree to completely cover the star. So to start off, you just want to hold a piece of the yarn in the center of the star. Then you want to start to wrap it, and you want to switch up the direction. So you want to kind of just take your time, go around the center, maybe cover up some of the points, and just go back and forth. That way it gets a nice even coverage. Now you can just trim off that extra yarn and then just tuck that tail underneath a few strands to hold it into place. And then just to attach it to my wood bead garland, I took my painter's tape and just pulled it through a few of those strands of yarn and then just tied a knot. I just thought that this yarn star would really give this wood bead garland a unique and fun look for the 4th of July. Here is a closer look at how I styled it. For this next DIY, I picked up these napkins from the Dollar Tree. So these ones were in their seasonal department with all of their 4th of July decor. I also picked up some matte Mod Podge as well as these foam craft brushes from the Crafter Square. I'm also going to be working on a piece of parchment paper because this one can get a little bit messy. You're also going to be needing some styrofoam balls. So Dollar Tree does carry these, but I don't think that they have this size. They do have a couple different varieties, and you can find them in the Crafter Square as well as the floral department, but these ones I did order from Amazon, so I'll leave these ones linked down below. So to get started, I just have one of my napkins here, and I want to trim it down because it's a little bit too large. So to make sure you're cutting it down to the appropriate size, you just want to open up your napkin, wrap it around your size styrofoam ball, and make sure it covers it completely without too much overlapping. So now I'm just going to be opening up my napkin, and you'll see that it does have an extra piece in here. We don't need that, so I'm just going to be removing it. And I'm just going to test it to make sure that this size is going to cover up the entire styrofoam ball without leaving too much extra. So now I am also just going to be cutting a couple of lines into my squares here. That way it just folds over a little bit easier around that styrofoam ball. Next, I'm going to get my matte Mod Podge as well as one of those sponge brushes, and I'm going to start coating only the top half of my styrofoam ball. So this craft does require a little bit of patience because the material can be a little fragile. So I like to just do this one in sections. So now I'm just going to carefully start to wrap my napkin around the top of the styrofoam where I added that Mod Podge. And once I had that in place, I added a little bit more Mod Podge to the sides and I started to fold my napkin around. So once the napkin gets wet, it is fragile, so you don't want to be touching it too much until you let it dry. So I'm working pretty quickly here and I'm just adding a little bit more Mod Podge and wrapping it around. Now, if it's not perfect at this stage and there's some pieces sticking out, that is totally okay. This is just the first step. So now I'm just going to let this part dry completely before I move forward. And I like to just pierce it with a toothpick, and then you can just insert this into a styrofoam floral block just to make the drying process really easy. And I like to keep one of these on hand exactly for this purpose. So I went ahead and did that same process with my other 4 styrofoam balls, and now this is what it looks like after it was completely dry. So now I'm going to move on to the next step, which is just securing down the rest of that napkin around the bottom of my styrofoam ball. So I'm just repeating all of those same steps and being sure to be really careful with that paper tissue because it can be kind of fragile right now. And then once everything was covered, I like to just add one final coat of Mod Podge over everything to seal it in place and just make it a bit more sturdy. And here is how they turned out when they were completely dry. So you can tell, even though it is a matte Mod Podge, it does give a little bit of a nice glow to it, and everything is definitely nice and sturdy now. So now you can just remove those toothpicks and these are ready to display. I decided to display mine in this faux stone bowl, which is actually another Dollar Tree DIY, and I'll leave that one linked down below in the description box if you guys want to check out that video. For this next DIY, we are going to be creating a patriotic pillow using 2 bath mats from the Dollar Tree. So these ones can be found in their bath department, and they have a couple different varieties. I just went with these 2 plain ones, and I do like to run these through the wash at home before I craft with them, just to make them super soft and nice and clean. And I'm actually going to be using the back side of the mat for my pillow today. Sometimes when you run it through the wash, you will see a bunch of these little fibers. You can just pull those right off, and I do like to just pull off that tag as well. So now I'm going to get started with the front of my pillow. So I flipped it around to the back because that is the side we're going to be using today, and I wanted to paint this. So I just marked it off with some painter's tape, and we're going to be using that same deep blue spray paint that we used in the previous DIYs. And I just went ahead and spray painted that whole section with one coat of that blue spray paint. The fabric does tend to soak up this paint a little bit more, so I did have to go a little heavy on it, and then I gave it a few hours to let it dry completely. So this was my first time using this spray paint on fabric. They do sell fabric specific spray paint, but I kind of wanted to just give this one a try. This one is just a regular spray paint, and I knew that this pillow would only be for decor purposes, so I wasn't too worried about it being super soft, but it actually turned out better than I was expecting. So now I'm just going to go ahead and just map out where I want my red stripes to be. I'm going to be using that same apple red spray paint that I used before. If I can find links to these spray paints, I will definitely leave them below in the description box. So now I'm just going to go ahead and paint all of those sections, and just be sure to push that tape down nice and hard. That way the paint does not bleed through when you are spray painting it. You also want to make sure that you're letting that paint dry completely before you are removing the tape. And this was my first time ever trying out spray paint on fabric before, regular spray paint that's not meant for fabric, and I was pretty impressed with it. I mean, it is, a little scratchy where the paint part is, but since this is just for decor, I'm not too worried about that. And before I assemble my pillow, I did just want to create 4 tassels for the corners. I thought that it would just make it look a little bit more fun. So to do that, we're just going to do it exactly how we did it before, but there is one step different. So you're just going to go ahead and wrap that twine around your fingers. I'm using the cotton twine from the Dollar Tree. Then I cut another small piece and just put it through the loop, and then tied about 2 or 3 knots on the top, nice and tight. So the thing that is different here is we want to hold on to those 2 ties on the top, the one where we secure the knot, because that is how we are going to attach it to the pillow. So don't lose those 2 strands. And now I'm just going to go ahead and cut the twine right across the knot to create my tassel. Next, to create the head of the tassel, you just want to pinch off the top portion and then wrap some twine around, and then just cut it and tie a knot to secure it in place. The last step is just to pull everything straight on the bottom and give it a trim to make sure it is nice and even. And then I just repeated that same process 3 more times to make 4 tassels in total. Now to assemble my pillow, I went ahead and grabbed that second bath mat, the one that we did not paint, and I'm making sure that it's facing right side up because this is where we're going to be putting our hot glue for the tassel. So I just put a little bit of hot glue in the corner and then just push those strands up top into the hot glue to hold it in place. So here's a closer look. So I just put a line of hot glue, and then I just take those 2 strands and just push them right into it and let it dry for about 30 seconds or so. And I made sure to do that for my other 2 corners as well. Now to assemble the pillow, you can sew this, but I'm actually just going to be using some hot glue because hot glue works so well on this fabric. I've made a bunch of these Dollar Tree pillows and I always just use hot glue and I've never been disappointed with the results. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a nice long bead of hot glue at the top. Be careful when you're squeezing not to get on your fingers, and it does really hold it in place so well. So I like to work in small sections and just take my time and go around the pillow, hot gluing those edges together. You can use any hot glue, but my favorite is the Gorilla brand hot glue sticks. These are the ones that I always use. I just feel like it gives a really strong hold and they're not that much more expensive than your average hot glue stick. I just ordered these from Amazon. I always have them on hand. I'll leave them linked down below in the description box. I worked my way around the pillow, hot gluing all of those edges closed except a small section on the bottom. I left that open so I could just fill it with some Poly-Fil. And once I had it all nice and full, I just hot glued it closed. I'm pretty sure that I've made a Dollar Tree bath mat pillow for almost every holiday now. I've definitely done Christmas, Halloween, 4th of July, Valentine's Day. So this one is just adding to my ever-growing collection. And here's a closer look at how it turned out. This one is definitely fun and really festive and adds a really fun pop of color to your living room. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to check out my video, and if you enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you are not yet subscribed, please do consider subscribing. You can subscribe to my channel by just clicking my picture right here. I have a lot of fun videos coming up, and I even have another video coming up very soon on how to throw the perfect 4th of July barbecue. Thank you so much for watching.